let's go forward. I know there was a lot of information about passwords, about techniques, and there's a lot of discussion happening in the chat. But we haven't finished. Version control is also a very important topic for all open source developers and all developers in general. So we are going to cover the basics here. Yet again, this is a part of our series of security training. We'll be posting videos. There will be the 2 more parts, and we'll be posting videos and materials from those 2 days so that you can share with your friends and or review yourself when you would like to. And I will also enable my video, that will be better. So what is version control security? We have quite many things in there that we're going to cover today. We have permissions, we have SSH keys, the branch protection rules, best practices for releases, and we'll mention the Eclipse Foundation self-service tooling that you can use to configure many of those things. So let's get started. First, permissions. You have probably heard a lot about permissions. In the version control system, you also have permissions. And we are usually dealing with role-based access control. Yes, this is as a repeat of things that you have heard already. In the version control, it is implemented with different names. On GitHub called access permissions, on GitLab permissions and roles. They are a little bit different settings in all of them. In all cases, you can, on a role repository, configure those permissions in different ways. That allows you to have structures like the Eclipse Foundation structure of committers who have permissions to write the repository, and not the whole world writing to your source code repository. So, the security best practice of least privileges. People should have only the permissions that they need to have and not more. Not everyone needs to have admin access. Only people whom the whole team trusts and people who actually need it for their work. And then a reminder to review those rights regularly. You may have someone who have done much in the project and then move to other things. They are no longer there. Review their rights and remove permissions. In the case of Eclipse Foundation, ask if they want to stay committed. If not, they do not have to be committed to contribute. And you can vote them back if they still have time. The risk of having people with permissions is that if their account gets breached, well, there may be damage. There are long tutorials for all version controlling system about how to set up those permissions. I'm not going to get into the details. In the case of project that is not hosted in a foundation, you may need to have a look on how to do it. In case of Eclipse Foundation, this is included into the committer or contributor permissions, so this is handled for you. Now, SSH keys. SSH keys in a version control we use to actually push code to repositories. But in general, you can use the same key to access a remote system. This is a better way than to have a username and password, because you do not have that password in clear, because the SSH keys is a public key cryptography. So you have the public key, the one that you share with the version control system or remote system, and the only one that you share. Please remember, never put the private key on SSH server in the field in the version control asking for your key. It's not this one. The server doesn't need that. And the private key, it lives on your machine only. Or if you want to have the same access from multiple machines on your different machines, you do not need to transmit it anywhere on the network. The advantage of public keys, public private key pairs, is that they are way longer than passwords and they provide better security. You can also secure even more your private key with a passphrase. So every time you use it, then you need to type your password. That protects you in case your machine gets taken over by someone, or you forget to log out and someone can access your machine. Now, why do we use SSH keys? This reduces the risk of typing the password yet again, and basically that's the default those days. It prevents the situation when someone steals the password in case you are missing two-factor authentication, and there's way more risk that it gets intercepted through the network. Of course, in case of phishing, if your access is using keys, this is not the password, so phishing won't work. And if you use SSH keys also for CI systems, this is also more secure than using passwords. And also you can set an expiration date of a key, and then you need to regenerate it when the date expires. That could be helpful if you lose your key, so it's not going to be valid for years to come. How to set it up? It's pretty simple. There are tutorials around the place. That's the default way of working at the Eclipse Foundation right now, so you probably have it, but we have the links in case you would like to review it yet again. Now, branch protection rules. This is a big subject. Why? Why you want to protect some branches? Imagine a situation when someone force pushes a branch by mistake. They have done some rebase, changed commits, there were conflicts, it was all complicated, and then they force push, and you figure out that by accident they removed some commits. It's not how it should be. You need to go back. This could be complicated. There may be losses. It may be hard to figure out what happened and restore, and also hard to figure out immediately that something like that happened. It also mitigates the risk of some malicious actor pushing code to your branches. So a good thing to do. For all the reasons like traceability, you can find out who did what exactly, and there's no magic happening that someone has rewritten the history of the branch and well, some stuff has disappeared. There are many features related to branch protection. We have listed just some of them, and depending on the project, depending on your workflow, different settings may make sense to you. For example, you may request, and that we recommend, that you work by pull requests, and you might ask to require reviews and approvals for those pull requests. Personally, on my projects, pull requests are mandatory, and reviews of at least one person of each pull request are also required. You may add scripts and pipelines that actually execute some tests on the changes, like simple thing checking for the coding style, or more advanced running some code static analysis tools, so it verifies that that there are no potential vulnerabilities in there. Then you can have restriction on who can merge. So this is something that we have by default with the permissions that only committers can merge, but there are some other possibilities in there. And the famous force pushes for the main branch of your project on the release branches. This is heavily recommended to avoid those things. With the exceptional cases, sometimes happen, but it should be extremely rare. In your development branches, that's up to you and up to your workflow. Now, how to set it up? On GitHub, we offer a way to set it through the self-service. So I'll give you a link for that. On GitLab, there's a manual from GitLab how to do it. You can also ask the Eclipse Foundation IT team to guide you with setting it up and in advising you what will work best for your configuration. Now, when we write code, at some point, there's that moment when we do a release, right? So what do we do when we do a release? A release should be easy to find for your users. So when they come to your project, they actually come to the release and not some random version of the code. So we use the version control to track changes, and best practice is to tag each release so that it's easy to find just using the tag name. At the same time, keep the release notes up to date so that users know what to expect, especially if there are security fixes, so that they know that they have a high priority update in there or not, and they can review what kind of security patches there are there in this new release. In your continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline, we heavily recommend that you publish through the CI and not from your personal machine. You can do pipelines that automate all kinds of security checks. You can do code scanning, you can check dependencies if they do not have any vulnerabilities, and you can sign release artifacts. So why do you want signing? On some platforms, it's basically mandatory to sign a release to have it installed. In this case, the question is pretty easy. In some other cases, when it's not required, it also makes sense. Why? Because then users can verify if it's really the release they wanted to get. So it works with the integrity, security property, and it can prevent an attacker putting a modified version of the artifact on some mirror server, assuming that someone is going to download it. Also, users trust more projects that provide signed release, so consider it heavily for your project if you are not doing that yet. Now, how? You can typically sign a release. Those are general remarks. You can enter into the details for a specific service on your specific CI system. We generally sign the releases using a dedicated key, and then sign the hash of the release artifact. The signature file is usually a separate file that is next to the release, then users can easily download it and verify, or can be metadata attached to the artifacts. When users want to verify, they download the release artifact and they download the signature, then they use the tool to verify using the public key used for the signing. Now, what do we offer from the Eclipse Foundation side? Because setting up release signing manually, that could be a really tedious and error-prone process. So we know that. So we offer the IT team service. IT team offers a service of signing a release, and you can use it. If your setup is not on the list, contact them about how it could be set up for your case. Now, a short remark about the Eclipse Foundation self-service tooling. If you haven't heard about that yet, so you can request changes in the configuration of the repository, for example, by setting up, you want to set up branch protection. And typically with the committer's permission, this is not possible. So that we've developed a tooling that allows you to describe that in a configuration file and pass through a tooling that verifies the change. If it gets approved, it can be modified and modify the settings of a repository. It saves you time and allows a discussion inside your project when you want to do a change. People can comment and you actually discuss on the specific change, the specific option. So it's also worth it for the transparency reasons. If a service that is currently available only on GitHub is enabled in a project, you have the .eclipse FDN file repository in your organization. So you should know if you have it. If you don't, ask us to have it enabled. Now, how it looks like when you are doing a change, like on this screenshot, it is basically a pull request with a configuration file. So you see what is happening, and you can verify those changes. There are quite many settings that are already available, and there is a documentation of the tool used to do this service called Autodoc that you can check out too. Now, we have an exercise for you. So, how could you improve the version control security of your project? Think about it a little bit. My first question will be, what was the last time your project reviewed the inactive committers? If it has been a long time ago, maybe that's the moment to check. If you are still using user and password for login to the version control, create SSH keys, it's easy. And think about what kind of branch protection rules may be useful for your project. Not too constraining at this time, but just useful and in line with the best practices that your project is actually following. We'll have a minute or two looking at the time. Not really. We have probably time for one question. I will stop sharing now because we have already the quiz link for this part, please test your knowledge, and I will be reviewing the questions in the chat because we do have one more subject to cover today. This is a bonus subject that will be presented by Joanna. I did stop screen sharing. This will be Joanna who will be presenting that additional subject. So let's have 1 more minute to finish the quiz, and then we'll be moving to the bonus section. And then at the end, as yesterday, we'll have a general survey with the part needed if you want a badge. So if you have attended the 2 sessions from yesterday, if you're attending today, you can get the badge. The last thing that will be left after the bonus section, there will be one last survey. We need the same information from you to be able to issue a badge. So let's have 1 more minute for the quiz, and then we'll be moving to the bonus section.